Welcome to The Mix, a fusion dance podcast where we dive into the world of blending dances and all that comes with it. We're talking about everything from the highs of nailing that perfect combo to the lows, emotional, and mental challenges and more. And if you're new to the dance scene, don't worry, we've got you covered with practical tips to help get you started, feel comfortable, and most importantly, have fun. So come on in. We can't wait to dance with you. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Mix, a fusion dance podcast. Our guest today has been gliding across dance floors since he was a young teenager, from ballroom to West Coast swing, and eventually to the dynamic and expressive fusion dance scene. Not only has he competed at a high level internationally, but he's also traveled the world teaching and sharing his passion for dance with others. Please join us in giving a big welcome to Ben O'Neill. Thanks for allowing us to drag you on our show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, first questions first is, how do you guys think that the fusion dance compares to other popular dance styles like West Coast swing, Latin, or ballroom in terms of like community, creativity, and structure? I feel like people want to get better in West Coast swing when there's a competition or any other type of ballroom or something like that when there's a competition element.
Yeah, I think there's there's some it's like there's a clearly defined standard. There's like a rubric. You have something to kind of go off of, like, oh, judges are looking for X, Y, and Z, and so it's kind of easier, I think, in a style like West Coast swing or whatever, to teach based on what is being looked for and sought after versus fusion, where like we don't have competitions, so there's not necessarily that same maybe that same like clarity. And I like that ambiguity, but I feel like that can also be a double-edged sword because it's not this clear cut, like, oh, let's learn rhythm, let's learn this count, let's learn this step, let's learn this specific structure so that we can play with this and like go off script.
I wonder what I'm really trying to ask is like, what is the hard part about maybe introducing fusion to someone, or not even just marketing it, but getting people to know more about it?
Yeah, well, I can say from my perspective, I probably spent a year and a half at Fusion Socials asking myself the same question of like, who is good? Like I would show up and I would look out. And I mean, at this point, I've been dancing for, when I started Fusion, I'd already been dancing for over a decade. And so I thought I had a trained eye. I could usually show up to a scene, even if it's not one of my main styles, and look out and find out who's good. But then I was at fusion events for like over a year and a half, and I couldn't look out and find out who was good. So I would say that's definitely one of the biggest differences. Is I think looks can be deceiving, and good is very subjective in fusion. I think it's subjective in almost any art form, but I think the general feeling of most fusion dancers isn't to try to be good. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it's like when I dance fusion, I'm not trying to be good. That's for sure. I'm trying to have an experience. I'm trying to dance with my partner. I'm trying to enjoy music. I'm not trying to be good. Whereas in a lot of other styles, I often feel like people are trying to be good. I don't feel like there's as much dancing going on as much as there is execution.
I think I get what you're saying. Like there's a level of choreography or like rehearsal and practice that goes into perfecting any particular thing. And fusion is weird because it's not like the goal isn't necessarily to like hit this exact thing this way and then that thing and then that thing. It's a lot more conversational, a lot more like you're trying to be present in the conversation. You're trying to speak and hear and respond and listen in the music. You're trying to interpret and you're trying to be present with that person, which changes that metric of like, or it changes like how you would define, good. Like you might look at someone and you're like, that looks different, but the people dancing are loving it. Like they're like, yeah, this is they're like they're on cloud 27, right? So I get what you meant. I feel like that, yeah, that makes sense.
And I also feel like while I think fusion, we don't have the same goals. Like a lot of us don't have the same goals. Whereas I feel like in West Coast, for instance, I think the majority of people who are currently dancing West Coast swing, they have a certain goal in mind, and most people
Mhm.
are aligned with that belief. Even though we don't have that, when I go traveling or I'm teaching at a fusion event, all of the other teachers are in class. Like I
Mhm.
don't see that in West Coast swing. You see it from time to time, but I see it in every fusion event that I go to. It's like you show up to the other instructor's class, and I don't even think it's fully out of support. I think they want to learn. From what
Mhm.
I've experienced of all of the styles, fusion instructors are the most interested in continuing their education. From
Mhm.
my perspective, I could be completely wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
seeing is instructors going to class to continually learn and to try to get better nonstop.
Mhm.
And I don't see that as much in other styles. They're more so training to, again, execute. And so it's like in West Coast, you learn, but if you're at that top level, you're largely going to be practicing to perform, um, or to compete if there's a difference these days. Whereas in Fusion, because there's no expectation to really perform or to compete, I feel like the instructors they're just learning like nonstop because there's so much to learn. There's I don't think anyone can learn at all, and so they're just learning all the time and they're practicing for sure. But the practice is different because the practice is about like honing in your skills versus performing for an audience.
I'm curious about, especially as someone who's like, you've been in it for so long, and I don't want to ask like, oh, like what keeps it fresh, but like what is because it's a constant unraveling thing. I'll just use my own experience. Like there's I'll watch videos right now of like folks in the in high school or in college wrestling. I'm just like, why? I never thought you could hit a cradle from that angle in that way, or like I'll see something and I'm just like that the way someone will break down or explain like a technique or a move. I'm just like that makes so much sense. I wish I knew that when I was coaching. Like I wish I could have had that little tidbit. And there's so much to it. I don't think you can learn all of it, but the pursuit is like it's one of those things where you get burned out and you're like, all right, I need a break from it, and then you jump back in it and you're like, wow, this is amazing, or there's this new thing that like invigorates you or excites you. For me, a lot of it is seeing familiar things in any way. Like that's for me. That's the kind of question I'm asking, but I want to ask all of that. So I want to like kind of say what I say and see what sticks. There's a lot of how Trang and I's conversations go, but it's cool.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I think the fusion journey is very different than other dance styles journeys because, like I said, we don't all have the same shared goal. Um, some people really just enjoy the community, and I think that's something amazing that the fusion scene has. Is like I think, or at least I hope to think that we value people for people, not for their dancing. And I think that's true in a lot of communities, but I think I can see people they try to get better because they think people will care about them if they're better. And I see that, and it kind of breaks my heart because it's like, well, I
Yeah.
mean, they should care about you no matter what, you know. And I think
Yeah.
luckily we have that in the fusion scene, at least the scenes that I've been around. And so it's like I don't think we have a lot of shared goals because there are definitely some people who they're going to be lifelong learners and they're going to want to be as good as they can be. And I will admit I'm one of those people. But
Mhm.
then we're also blessed to have a lot of people in the fusion community that really try to make it their job to make sure everyone feels included and
Mhm.
safe and a part of something. And so I think because we have that super wide spectrum, you're going to have a lot of different goals, right? And I think that's amazing. I think that's great. So that's why it's like there's a thousand things you can do. Like as a dancer,
Mhm.
fusion gives me so much creativity, but then also as a wannabe event organizer, um, I can also try to play with that range as well.
No, I was gonna say I don't know if it's fair for you to say wannabe. Like you've actually done the thing. Like the thing has happened, And yeah, I mean, you might be like, oh, well, it could be improved, but I feel like we're all a little bit. We all have that like, we have that part of us that we view ourselves through that other people are like, what? No, you did the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you did the thing, brother. You did the thing. Like the thing happened. It's done. You can say event organizer. You can stand on that 10 toes.
We're trying. We're getting there.
Yeah. Okay. Look.
Oh, actually touching on what Ben was talking about, it kind of reminds me of back in college when there were hip hop teams at each college. And the college I went to was the only one that didn't have auditions. We welcomed every single person. And there were people that had no dance experience. We would try to teach them choreography. And then all the other schools, though, they did auditions only. So their team was more top notch. And I think there's kind of pros and cons to that, because obviously you can build more of like I would say like a less clicky community when you're inviting everyone, but the skill level it's going to be a wide spectrum, right? So I feel like in a way sometimes that's like fusion, especially like in LA, but then the ones that have auditions and stuff like that, or remind me of people that compete where there's certain rubrics or standards you have to meet in order to get to that point.
Yeah. My only fear is that like it becomes quite soulless when it's about auditions and being good. I think if you're in a community that has like radical acceptance, there's going to be people in that community that want to be good. Like I consider myself someone who I not only want to be good, like I have to be good. If I'm not good at it, I'm going to go get good. Like I personally cannot handle not being good. Like it hurts me inside. But I'm not in the fusion community because of that, but I'm still part of the fusion community because it's been an accepting community. And so I think even if we can be super accepting, I don't think that at all will hurt the dance. And I don't think being competition driven or execution driven will help the dance either. I think you will have a lot of people with that shared goal. And so it might be easier to find practice partners, but that's probably about it. But again, if we're radically inclusive, you're going to have those same people in your community. And I think they will be able to achieve the things that they want to achieve alongside someone who really just wants to bring cookies to the function. And I think that's great.
Do you guys feel like your plateaus, when you hit a plateau, it's different in fusion versus something in a more formal, like West Coast swing and other styles of dances? Like, does the plateau feel different?
Yeah, I don't think I've hit one in fusion. For me, at least the way that I try to train, even though I've been called untrained countless times, the way I try to train, I can't hit a plateau because the second I'm over it, I'm over it, and I'll just go to something else. Like that's why fusion's great. Like, I really try to immerse myself into a dance, and then the second I don't want to be there, I'm just not gonna go. It's kind of that simple. There's a different dance I can go learn.
You know what? Okay, so to hit that real quick, actually, yeah, I feel like, granted, I think I kind of approach it through the same lens that like I saw sports and athletics. Like it's for me, it's the same thing where it's like a plateau for me is not necessarily an indicator that you don't care about it or that you don't love it or that it's not something that you like want to do. For me, like it's like, oh, like there's a wall here and you need to figure out how to get through this wall. And sometimes getting through this wall isn't getting through this wall right now. Sometimes getting through this wall is like coming back to it later. And for me, like when I've had blocks, like I took a long break from Latin. I took a long break from like salsa and bachata. I felt like I just couldn't enjoy it. But that was like a personal reason. It wasn't anything necessarily wrong with like the dance itself. It was something that I needed to resolve and I needed to deal with and I needed to process. And once I did that, it was like, okay, I can enjoy this again, but I have to do this different. I have to do this in a way that's like honest and honoring the person I am now, not the person I was then, you know? So and with fusion, I haven't necessarily had the same kind of plateaus. I've had times where I just didn't enjoy it as much, but typically those were times where I was not as curious about trying to bring in different influences or ideas or things. Like for me, fusion is like, if we're gonna use a food analogy, because we love those around here, I feel like I haven't been in the kitchen, right? There was nothing that I ate that I was like, this is good. What would this be like if I tried, making it a different way, right? Like, what would it be like if I just had this amazing, this amazing dish, and I want to try to like deconstruct it and put it back together and make it my own way and play. Like, if there's not that curiosity for me, then I'm more or less just like, I'm kind of going through the motions and I'm just kind of doing stuff, and I'm not really Like I'm not really getting anything out of it, but I'm also not putting anything in it, you know?
Yeah, I'd say the same.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
similar to that, where I feel like if I'm in something like salsa or West Coast swing, a lot of my frustration is like, oh, I can't get this pattern down, or I can't follow this pattern from a certain lead, maybe. It's more like based on, I guess you can call it technique. Whereas in fusion, I feel like if I haven't been creative lately and I'm doing the same moves over and over again or styling the same way, that's when I feel not plateau, but more like stagnant. Like I
Mm,
feel like I'm stale. So that's how I feel like the difference for me it is.
yeah, it's like dry. Like, yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Like dry cake.
Mm, mm.
One thing when I was talking to you, Ben, before that I found like really interesting was when you told me it took a while for you it took you what, 2 years to understand fusion? Because for me, I was thinking, oh, if someone has a strong background in ballroom or which, you grew up with and or like West Coast swing or anything like that, they can pick up fusion right away versus someone that's never had any dance background and they approach fusion.
Yeah, but I think it's the difference in goals. When I was learning cha-cha, I was learning to execute. I wasn't learning to dance. Like you don't get to the dance until years of execution. Like it takes you a really long time to learn something and almost master it before you can then make it into art. Um, and so then when I am in a space where I'm seeing a whole lot of art, I'm I'm fully confused because in my mind, the only way that you can get to the art is through mastery. Um, and I've now gotten to the point where I think they're both artistic. I think they're different types of art. I think someone who is a fusion first dancer, they haven't done any other partner dancing and they've been around for 3 months and they're having a great time. I see that as art, but I do see that as a different type of art as someone who's been dancing for a decade and is now in the fusion scene. I do see those as two separate forms of art, but I do see them both as art forms. And my dance background, I was not seeing artistically. I never once considered myself an artist until I got to fusion. It's not even like a sad thing. I don't like art. Like I was a competitive kid. Like I wanted to win. I didn't care about self-expression. I was not there yet. And so I'm again in a space full of self-expressing people that are really in tune to their artistic side and not trying to be better than anyone. And I was very confused. I was confused and frustrated because all the people are talking to me, great people having really healthy outlooks on life. And I am so toxic at the time because I'm just like, but who is good? I would always ask, but like, who's good? Like, I'm trying to look at the good leads so I can figure out how to be good. And if I can't find a good lead to emulate, I will not be able to get good. And I was so worried and frustrated about not being good because, again, that's all I've ever cared about. That it took me 2 years to really just be okay with I don't have to be good. Like it's not required. It's great if that's your goals. And fusion has now given me an avenue where I think I'm the best dancer I've ever been because I've learned so much through fusion. But my first lesson was the fact that it's okay to not be good. And that was a hard lesson for me. It took about 2 years for me to accept that.
Was there a moment where it clicked, or maybe because I personally have a fixation with moments. I like particular moments, but I also understand that sometimes things are just a journey. It's a cumulative, like it adds up, it builds up, but then eventually you're like, oh, this is this or this is that. But like, was there a moment for you where you were like, yo, I can just kind of like this is me expressing who I am, what I feel. Like, was there a particular point that happened for you?
I don't remember the exact moment, but
Mm,
I do know that those 2 years that I was in the fusion scene, I was not around in West Coast at all. Um, and then I still like the dance. So I was around at a social or something. And I remember seeing a West Coast social, a West Coast floor, um, with my now new sense of being a fusion dancer and be like, oh, like this is
mm.
different. Like this is very different.
Yeah,
But I think in
yeah.
that 2 year journey, I wasn't fully aware of what was happening. I wasn't fully aware that I was focusing more on dance and people and having those type of relationships. And so then when I was back in the space where all I cared about was execution and saw a lot of people around me that seemed like some of their main goals, definitely not all of them. There's great people in West Coast Swing, but a lot of people have goals to be really good. I think seeing that was probably the point where I realized that the change occurred.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to, I guess, and not just Westies, but people that are in that mode and they're starting fusion or considering it?
Well, the only thing I can think of is through my experience, like because I was focused about getting good, I was then in the scene and I was trying to figure out how to get good. And it was largely the fact that I wasn't able to get good quickly. And it's not so much that I'm talented, I'm obsessive. And so, like, if I'm going to try to learn something, I will spend as many hours as I physically can to do that. Um, and I wasn't able to brute force my way into being good at fusion. But I'm not going to just not be good at it. So I was stubborn enough that I was okay with not understanding for 2 years. Whereas I don't think there's a lot of people who would be willing to do that. And so I find it very difficult to introduce someone like me to the dance if they're focused on being good, because they're not going to be able to be good anytime soon. And so I really don't have any advice. My only advice is like, I dare you to try. Like, please try to get good at this. Like, because I think that's the only way that you could try to motivate them.
I would add in a modifier of, I think, confidence, but I think it's confidence that it's okay to try things that may or may not work. And I think from what I've observed and what I've experienced, people will kind of go to things that they feel comfortable with before they'll try something that might make them look overly silly. Like if they want to look silly, that's different than not knowing what they're doing, or like hearing a different genre and being like, "Oh, I don't actually know this." Like me, I'm okay with kind of like, yeah, I'm like, I think I kind of know this, but if I don't, I mean, like, so what? Like the rules are made up. We're making this up as we go. And that, not taking myself too seriously, has worked in my advantage in some ways, and then in others, right, like, there's pros and cons to it. But that's the thing that I've observed, and I think that it's not. I wouldn't say that people aren't versatile as well. No, I was. I'm saying a lot, but I think there's like a fear of not doing it right that holds people back from trying, and then eventually doing it a way that they feel comfortable and they feel like is true to who they are.
I know, Ben, you've traveled to either teach or to other fusion dance scenes. Do you feel like when you guys travel, has that influenced your dancing style or teaching style?
I think I've learned so much. Like I think I started fusion around 2018. But it wasn't really till like the past 2 years that I maybe went to other scenes. I was largely in LA. I say largely, I think I was exclusively in LA. Um,
Hmm.
but the second I went to the Bay, that's when what I see, definitely opinions, but when I went to the Bay, I saw what fusion dancing is. I saw glimpses of it in LA, but like when I went to the Bay, at least I saw people like me, I would think. I saw people that had a lot of dance background. They've trained a lot. They've trained multiple styles, and they like to incorporate all of that into their dance, while also being they're like literally the dopest people on the planet. Like they're super just down for anything. Like it's incredible. Um, and so I was starting to kind of feel like fusion was kind of just about that. There are no rules, do whatever you want. But when I went to the Bay, it was like the rules give you freedom because you're able to do things. Like it's very hard to do something. It doesn't matter if someone has zero dance background, you put them in a class for a week, yeah, they can lead and follow. But you're not gonna be able to get them to do the things that you have in your brain because you don't have any of that shared language, you don't have that shared technique, and you don't definitely don't have any of the experience. And when I went to the Bay, I saw a whole lot of people that knew a whole lot more than I did, doing a whole lot of crazy stuff that I wanted to do. Um, and so then it did give me kind of a different perspective of like I've never liked Argentine tango. I've never ever liked it. But when I watched Mark Carpenter bust out something that I know that I cannot do. It's like, what am I gonna do? Just watch him be better than me forever? Like he will be better than me forever. But I need to learn some tango so that when he hits me with whatever that is, I can like, yeah, I can do that too. Okay. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
great, you're amazing, everyone loves you. I'm super jealous, but like I can fake it. I can kind of do what you just did. Whereas like currently I can't. And it's like, again, me being me, I'm not super comfortable with that. So like the Bay opened my eyes to so much because it was just I saw so many people that were super talented and super experienced. And I think there is a big difference between an experienced fusion dancer and someone who's just out to have fun. And I don't think one is better. I don't think those people are
Mhm.
better. But they're more aligned with what I'm interested in for sure.
So Kayla and I love using food analogies, and we talk about it as if it's like being a chef, right? The more advanced dancers are the ones with different backgrounds. They know how to work with different spices, you know. Whereas like someone that's just starting in the kitchen, you can give them some tools and supplies, but like you said, if they don't know how to use a cheese grater, they'll look at them, they'll be like, oh, but if they don't know how to use it, then there's only so much limited dishes they can create with it, right? Or maybe like limited cuisines they can make because they don't know the whole taste of the buffet or they don't know how to work with the whole entire spice rack.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. But I think also the thing is like I don't really care so much about food. Like I'm just eating to eat. And it's like some of the food I make, it's not good at all, but like I enjoy it. Like there are times where I literally just crave my beans and rice. Like there's nothing to it. It is literally a can of beans and rice. And I'll just put it in the microwave, put some tapatio on it, and that's what I want, you know? And like I enjoy that. And no one's gonna tell me their beans and rice are better than my beans and rice because I don't care about their beans and rice. Like I just like my beans and rice. And I see that in fusion where it's like people can just enjoy what they like, whereas in some other scenes it's like, but they put something else in their beans and rice, and everyone
Mhm.
wants to do that. And it's like it's great that you can, and if that's what you're into, that's amazing. But there are some people who don't care, like, and I think that's okay. I think that's great, and I think we have that in fusion.
I don't want your beans and rice, Ben. Blah. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's more for me. It's more for me.
I wasn't gonna say nothing. Look, look. Like I love that. I love that for you. I love that for you. I need something in my beans and rice. But no,
That's
I think that that's a beautiful. I think it's a beautiful way to put it, especially like I'll say this from the East Coast, like there at least where I live, there was a lot. Shout out Lancaster, you know, I see you. Um, there's so much blues and swing and like Lindy influence there. And what I realized is like coming here to LA and there's there's like I'd say there's like a wider base in terms of like there's just different dances, different dancers, people coming from everything from gymnastics to you know trapeze to like there's other things in the mix, not just dance in the mix, right? Other forms of movement that like when I went back to the East Coast, the biggest thing I got was like, oh, your style changed. I was like, did it? And to me, I didn't notice anything until I would like look back and like see like the fringe video of me like in the corner kind of moving over here. And I was like, oh, I maybe it did change a little bit. Like maybe I did pick up some of that. And I think the thing that changed is I think I just became more expressive where not that I wasn't before, right? But like a lot of the time you're having conversations with people, you pick up the kind of words that they use, the sentences, the phrasings, the way that they say things. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then being here in LA, I felt like there was a lot more of that variety. And then also, you know, traveling and going to other scenes, seeing other places. Like thankfully, I was able to go to New York for some fusion, to Seattle for hi-fi. That was great. I love that. Shout out hi-fi. That was fire. And just like being able to like check out these little pockets and these little places and see like everyone like every scene, every group has some kind of something to it, even like people from what was it, Portland, like there's like these little nuances and it's kind of hard to put into words exactly like what that thing is. But I think just the more I've danced in different places, the more honest with myself I've been and the more like true to what I actually want out of the dance versus what I think looks good or what I think people want to see. I'm like, oh well, people want to see me do this, so I'm gonna do. It's like no, I feel like I'm more inclined to say, actually, no, like this is what I honestly enjoy, and I'm more willing to present that to someone and say, hey, like I like paprika, you know what I'm saying? I like a little garlic in there. I like some coriander, you know what I'm saying? I do. I hope you do too. If you don't, that's totally fine. But this is what I'm working with. I like to add a little season, a little spice in that mug. You know what I'm saying? I like a little spice. Like let's put some habanero in that mug. Yeah, anyways, yeah, that's just that. So yeah, I feel like travel has been really good. I feel like travel is good for the soul, like point blank period. You know what I mean? I feel like it's good for in any realm and in anything, but especially in fusion, especially in this like, this thing.
What do you guys think is currently lacking in our fusion dance community, or like
Latin.
what needs to like for us to grow and thrive compared to the other cities that you guys have seen?
More Latin.
Ben
That's
is like not a
so much more. Can we get some Bad Bunny? Bad Bunny just dropped the album. Can we get
you
some,
know, Ben
please?
is like not a
One.
fan of Latin.
That's
No,
oh really?
no, that's not true. That is not true at all. That's not true at all.
Dang.
Salsa was probably my first love. Like as far as like a dance that I
Mm,
could feel myself in, salsa was definitely the
yeah,
first.
yeah.
Latin is great. Latin is amazing. I don't know who is talking bad about
That's
Latin.
crazy.
It's
That's
not me. It's not me. I promise you, it's not
okay.
me. It's
All
not
right.
me.
Okay. All right. All right. I believe you. I believe you. I believe you.
But Ben, don't you remember that one time when we
Start pulling up that beef.
It's the question in general that made me have that face
Mm.
because I don't want to answer that question.
But I think there is this. I wonder if there's a same level of curiosity to get better and to grow and to progress that like it's something like I haven't necessarily seen. Like I feel like classes should be packed out. I feel like lessons should be packed out. I feel like people should be constantly like, yo, like you trying to practice. I've had a couple people like come to me like, yo, like I want to do some kind of like let's get some practice stuff going. Let's do like and I love that. I feel like that energy is what makes the room a little bit better. And I think competition is good for that end. If you make competition your end all be all, I think it can taint things, right? But like coming just like from the world of throwing bodies around, right? Like for the most part, when you have people who have competition in mind, they look at practice different. They take advantage of those moments. Right? They want to stay late. They want to get there early. They want to do the extra work that would get someone to that next level. And I think having that kind of culture, even if you don't necessarily have competition, having that kind of culture, people who have a little bit of that competitive edge, I think that's a good thing that would kind of spur it along. But like that's from my experience. And also like again, coming at it from the athletics point, it's like I want to dance the entire time. I want to go the entire night. So I want like my motivation now for doing stuff like jump and rope or run. I hate running. I despise it with a passion. If you love it, I love that for you. I don't. But I'm like, I want to do things so I can maximize the time that I can spend on the dance floor because I enjoy this. I love this. I don't want any barriers there. And there are people 100% like if you want to just, like you feel like you need to just pop in, you need some time to like decompress from life, whatever. Okay, great. But how are you also giving to the scene, not just like showing up and receiving? And I think we all have different periods in our lives where we need to receive, yes, but like how are you also giving? Like how are you also contributing? I think that's the thing that I would like challenge folks with. Like, what are ways that you can give? Because the way that I might give is different than the way someone else might give. And I think that's like a deeper conversation, but that's kind of my like 1-2
But
response to that
I think
question.
$20 is enough. If you're showing up and you're giving $20, I think that's plenty.
Mm,
Because again, if we have that radical acceptance, anyone showing up to give $20 to whoever that event organizer is, I can guarantee you that event organizer is using that $20 better than probably anyone else in the scene could.
mm,
Because that event organizers, they're trying to do the thing that's going to benefit the community as a whole. So I'm more than happy with people just showing up. And I also think personally, competition is the worst thing possible for an art form. I
mm,
understand your sentiment, um, but I don't think that's the way forward. I think it's what works, and I think that's usually what's successful. Um, but what is successful, I don't think is actually good. And so
mm,
I would disagree on that front, but I think that's just goals. I think what I see or what I would hope to see isn't achieved through competition. even though I can admit it often makes the dancers better.
Like, or what would growing the scene look like for you?
I think you need curious people, you need people to inspire, and you need amazing community organizers, which is all those things are difficult. Where are you going to find curious people if you don't have people to inspire? And how can we support our community organizers? Because I'm realizing that being an event director is the most difficult thing on the planet. In the dance world, please let me. It's not the most difficult, but in the dance world, it's horribly difficult. And realistically, you don't benefit from it at all. I've put on 4 events with my co-host, and it has been horrible. Like personally, it has not been. It has not been fulfilling. It has not been fulfilling. It really hasn't. It sucks. Like it's borderline depressing, but you hear the positive feedback from the people that attend, and it's like, I know that this is the work that needs to be done, and so I'll do it for as long as I can. But it's like, if we don't have people supporting those people, you're going to be screwed. And if it's the thought of what do you bring to the event, it's like you bringing that $20 allows that event organizer to hire another instructor to bring in the out of town DJ, because having amazing DJs will change a night. But if you only have $100 for your DJ staff, you're not going to be able to get someone from wherever they are. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm perfectly fine if you're showing up and you showing up as $20. I'm more than happy to have you sit in and watching. Like I think that's great.
When you teach, what do you prioritize when you're teaching, let's say, beginners versus experienced dancers in fusion, though?
With beginners, it's fundamentals. It's frame and rhythm. If you don't understand how to lead follow, I'm not going to teach you anything else. With experienced dancers, it's largely questions. I know people don't like it, but it's like, I'm going to ask you why, because I know why I do what I do. I've been obsessed with the why. Like, why are you stepping like that? Like, why? Like, please explain to me why. And if you don't know why, you should probably figure out why. Because in fusion, almost everything is correct if you have intention. The only thing that you could be doing wrong is not having intention, in my opinion. And so if you know the why that you're doing it, then it's correct. But if you don't know why you're doing something, you might not be doing it very well.
So you're saying when I flail when I dance with you, that's not okay?
If you know why you're flailing, if you're
My
flailing
artistic expression is simple.
exactly, then that is perfect. That's perfect. But if you're lost,
I'm trying to emulate a magic harp right now.
if that is your goal, I mean, you're executing, and that's great. That's I'm all for goals. Let's try to do something, even if that try is to look like a kite. Like, if that is your goal, then you're doing it very well.
What is one piece of advice you guys would give to anyone that is starting on their fusion journey, whether they are a beginner or they have something like a strong dance background in something else?
Show up. I think that's all I can say. If you're there, eventually it's gonna make sense. Hopefully it won't take you 2 years like it did me, but it will make sense eventually. If you don't show up, it's never gonna make sense. So
I think mine would be like, come with an open mind. I'm trying to remember the beginning of my journey when someone from West Coast Swing told me to give fusion a try, and I was so confused because I was like, what do I do here? So I'd say come with an open mind and kind of like try the buffet, dance with all types of people that you can there, and just see what it's really like. And there's a few dancers where you might click with and be like, oh, I get it, or I understand, I'm getting the feel for this, and as a result, I enjoyed fusion and just continue to show up.
It's a two-parter. It's just I would say explore and be honest. I think those two things have been kind of guiding lights. Balance would be the third thing, but that's too much. Explore the music, explore yourself, ask those questions, like figure out what you want out of a dance, what you want out of a song, what you could do, and then how someone else might do it and why they might do it differently. Like, being curious and just exploring and finding those little nooks, to me, has led to so much flow and like that deep meditative presence. And yeah, I mean, I'll kind of end it on that. I don't want to, I don't want to add too much, right? But like, yeah, like explore. We'll leave it at explore, right? We'll just say that.
Well, thanks for being here, Ben. And if you guys enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please share it with a friend and give us a follow and a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. You can check us out on social media at Fusion Dance Podcasts. And if you have any suggestions or topics you'd like for us to cover or talk about, you can reach out to us at fusiondancepodcast@gmail.com. We've included an awesome resource. It's a one document of all the places we've done social dancing here in LA, as well as Ben's contact info down below. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.